Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today is definitely an educational moment for our viewers. It might be sensitive to viewers as well, so let me put that out there ahead of time. But one thing I like about my show is that we provide educational information. And today, I was clearly blown away by what I heard during the pre-interview with our guest. Let me take you down this real quick. What would you do if you was told you're 13 years old and you're a female and you was told that you have to marry this individual that's in his 20s or older? I know what you're thinking. This has been going on for years, and it opens up doors to other questionable acts that go unanswered and go unseen. I won't say that it's not going unseen. We see it, but we don't know that this is legal. Today on the show, we have a young lady who actually was part of this system. And she's here to share her story. I'd like to welcome Kat Williams to the show.
Hello.
Kat, you shared so much information during the pre-interview that literally blew my mind. Before we get into your journey, tell the viewers a little bit about who you are before we get into the nitty-gritty of your story.
Well, I am Kat Williams, and I work with an organization called the Resiliency Foundation, and we work to end child marriage in the U.S., which is still legal in about 38 or 39 states. There's some legislation that's just passed and hopefully will be signed into law ending it in another state. We work to lobby legislators and to educate and to raise awareness that this is still legal in the U.S., and we define child marriage as any marriage under the age of 18 of legal age, because it opens up a whole set of issues we can talk about.
Yeah, we can talk about that because I had no idea. Let's start back with your childhood because that's where it starts.
Yes.
Where are you from? You say you're from?
I'm from Harlan, Kentucky originally.
Okay, I know exactly. Dirty Harlan.
Bloody Harlan.
Bloody Harlan, yeah. What's that like growing up in Bloody Harlan? I love the justify. I love the justify.
It's nothing like that.
It's not, okay. What's it like growing up in Bloody Harlan?
It was actually, it was good. Like, it was,
not like television makes it.
No. I mean, we were poor, obviously. I remember as a child not having indoor plumbing. And
you had an outhouse?
Had an outhouse.
Get out of here.
I did. And we actually moved to Indianapolis when I was in grade school. So I moved here very young. But I had a lot. My mom was one of 14 kids. And so some of her 10 sisters. And
please tell me you guys aren't related to the Hatfields and McCoys.
No, we're part of the South in that.
Okay.
They're up in Virginia.
Okay.
So, but I was raised with my cousin. I have about 40 first cousins.
First cousins?
First cousins. Actually, in the winter, my daughter came and a cousin of mine was at my house, and we did our family tree beginning with my grandparents. It took us a couple days. I have pictures of my daughter drawing on big paper. And from my grandparents down, we know of 175 descendants.
We're going to go back and revisit that and show the connection with where we're going with this story in your life.
A lot of what happened, what I experienced was because of culture. It was very cultural. In my family, Appalachia, of course, we had moved here by then. I was 14 when I got married, and I married a 20-year-old man. And I would not say my marriage was forced. I knew him. He went to our church, very conservative, fundamentalist religion. And I was 13 when we first dated with my parents' permission. And
did his parents ask your parents' permission to date you?
No, he just asked me. And then I asked my parents.
And your parents?
And they let me go out with him at 13. And
you know, people today would be like,
as they should be. As they should be.
That's almost considered child molestation.
It would have been had it not been for the marriage. That's another issue with child marriage in the U.S. is it covers a lot of statutory rapes and molestation, and it's used in that way a lot to cover that. I know women that were married unforced to cover their abuse with a child marriage. The Genevieve that started the Resiliency Foundation,
right?
That's her story.
So let's go back a minute. You said you came from Bloody Harlan to Indianapolis. Was your parents trying to avoid the generational flow? Why did you come to Indianapolis? Because I mean, you just don't go from Bloody Harlan to Indianapolis. Get real.
Well, back in the 60s is when we moved, in the late 60s. And we moved because of jobs. My grandfather worked in the coal mines. My dad did not want to work in the coal mines. He had, off and on, because if you lived in Harlan, you kind of had to at some point to eat. And so my grandfather first came up here and got a job at Chevrolet over on the west side. So as a lot of people in the 60s migrated north to Indiana, Ohio, Michigan for jobs, especially in the auto industry, and to get out of poverty.
Yeah, I mean, who wants to work in the coal mine and get black lung
and my grandfather died of black lung.
Yeah.
So that's why we moved, was for economic reasons.
So the guy that was 20 years old, was he from Kentucky and later moved to Indianapolis?
No, he was from Indianapolis. He went to our church.
Okay, let's go with that. You mentioned something that I had no idea. Tell me about the church. You said something about the regulations is family-based sort of tradition.
Yes. The fundamentalist religion, which just means that it's ultra conservit. They take the Bible as literal.
Oh, they don't change nothing.
They don't. Context doesn't matter. Time period doesn't matter. Like, they say they take it literally. What they want to take literally, they do. What they don't want to take literally, they don't.
They pick and choose.
They do. So I was raised in a very, like I said, fundamentalist, conservative, fear-based religion, very controlling, and...
Was there domestic violence rampant with that kind of thinking? Even though it's church-based, I mean, did the woman have to submit and all that? You know, the Lord said do this, and you don't. Really?
Absolutely.
And that was tolerated.
That was expected. There was not. I will say this: I did not see physical violence.
Right.
But I want people to understand the damage I have experienced firsthand, not only in that church, but in marriage. The effects of emotional, financial, and verbal abuse, rampant, and very, very traumatic and very damaging. I would say, for myself, I've not experienced physical abuse, but the emotional and verbal and mental abuse has been so devastating. I'm still dealing with it. And because what happens is you can't see those wounds. You can't see those scars. People don't take it as seriously, and they don't see the trauma that is underlying, that affects every area of our lives because of that.
Were you guys forced to self-contain all of this? Because clearly, if you're dealing with family-based religion, you know, keep your skeletons in your closet.
Oh God. I'll say this: skeleton out of the closet. There was sexual abuse in my family generationally.
What do you mean by that?
There was sexual molestation in my family.
With parents molesting kids and cousins molesting cousins.
I was molested by my grandfather and my uncle as a child.
Did your parents know this?
My dad didn't. He wasn't as involved. My dad actually surprisingly wasn't in the church.
So he had a whole different belief system.
He had a whole, well, he was, his belief system was he worked all the time and he drank a lot and he had his friends. And he was home very little. And as my parents aged, a lot of that changed. My dad grew, my mom, they evolved to a certain degree.
So to find out that you was molested by your uncles, which was close as hell to kin as you can get.
Well, when we moved to Indianapolis, we all moved to the same street. We lived on the same block, several of us. So it was my grandparents, us, and 4 to 5 of my mom's sisters and their families.
Did anybody in the family know about this rampant?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And it was
the worst kept secret.
Really? And it was just tolerated. You just went on with your life.
We were taught to stay away from them. Don't get, like, as a kid, we were told to protect ourselves, but how does a child?
So you guys kind of knew who the pedophiles were.
Absolutely.
And was told to. I couldn't imagine that being condoned. You know what I mean?
And that's the problem with generational trauma, though, is to see what my mother went through and lived, and the object poverty that she lived in Appalachia was unbelievable. Like starvation nearly. Abandonment by her father for years at a time, sexual abuse, and that's the problem with things like child marriage and other childhood traumas is the generational effects, because we don't, as a mom, me, married at 14, I had my first daughter at 15. I mean, I'm a kid raising a kid. It was the same thing with my mom, and it took me in my mid-20s saying, there's something wrong with this. And I'm not saying I'm the only one that did it. I was the one that stepped out of that and got a divorce after 15 years from the child marriage.
Were you frowned upon because you still have family?
I lost the biggest part of my relationship with my extended family, still.
Do they feel like those secrets jeopardize the family secrets? They're now out?
And divorce wasn't allowed. So because of the religious component, divorce wasn't allowed. So for me to leave that church and to leave my marriage, even though I did it as a child, I could have gotten that marriage annulled.
You're getting married to a guy that's 20-some years old. You're 13 years old. I couldn't imagine me telling my daughter, you're going over to do 13 years old, when you know a dude 20-some years old, he's going to eventually consummate a relationship.
Yes.
And she, at that age, she doesn't know. What parent in their right mind would allow that to? But I get it. You said it's generational.
It is, because
but it's your kid. How do you allow that to happen?
A parent is not in their right mind. Like, they're not. They're a trauma brain. I'm an imaging technologist. That's my degree. I didn't go to high school, but I eventually got my GED, and I went to college, and I got a divorce.
So you see the impact it has on brains.
Yes, and trauma brains look totally different
than normal
brains. And it's actually very fascinating.
You married this dude at 20-some years old.
He was 20.
20 years old.
I was 14, we got married.
But you dated at 13.
Dated 6 weeks, yes. Before we got engaged. And then we
What was his side of the family like?
Very similar to mine.
Was he from
big family?
Kentucky too?
He was born here, but I think he was like one of 10 siblings, and I think all but maybe him and one brother was born in Kentucky. So his family had also moved from Kentucky, not Harlan, but another.
So they had those same type of genetic blueprint, basically.
Trauma, yes, and I would say that his family, I don't know degrees of trauma, but they had some deep. They had a lot.
What was it like being married with him? What was it like being married?
It was terrifying because I wasn't forced to get married, but I would say not by my parents or the church necessarily, but the mindset was there for this to happen. I was coerced by him because, like you said, at some point a 19-20-year-old guy's going to want to consummate the relationship.
Right.
And sex outside of marriage was absolutely forbidden. I mean, like, throw it,
right.
child SA, whatever, but that was the big rule. And when we started going out, he, tried things with me, and he got fairly far, and which brought a lot of guilt and shame on me, and he threatened me with that if I didn't marry him, he would tell that I let him touch me under my clothes. And that would have been a huge shame. But, so when we decided, I tried to back out of the marriage I remember 3 specific times that I told him, look, I'm 14. I'm in 8th grade. I was in 8th grade. And I would go to school and tell my friends I'm going to get married, and they would be like, that's crazy. Like, no, my teachers, and they would talk me out of it. And I'd be like, you're right, it's crazy. I'm going to go to high school, we're going to go to football games, we're going to, and I would go back and try to tell him, because I didn't have the relationship with my parents to tell them, this is a bad idea. Like, parents should be saying, no, what the hell? If my kid came in and said that, I would be like, you have lost your whole mind.
What was the benefit outside of the tradition? Usually, when we look at history and that happens, it's usually with royalty.
Yeah.
And you're going to get compensated for marrying my daughter at a young age. They justified it. I don't even want to use the word justified. That's how they did it. It was a means to develop economic resources.
Right.
What do you think the reason was here? Because you came from Bloody Harlan, nobody had no money. You guys all lived on the same street. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, but economically, generations before me, economics were a big factor, because you have 14 kids, you get those girls out of the house as fast as you can.
Right.
You get these kids independent as fast as you can, because you can't beat them. And then they start having children, and then this cycle continues until somebody says, this is enough. But by the time it came along for me, it was a lot to do with the thinking that a girl was just born to marry and have babies. The only thing I was created for by God in their teaching was to get married and be a mom. And so here was this, and it was seen as safety, because I wasn't going to come up pregnant outside of marriage, which was a big shame, and no. And not in my case, but in other cases, finances were an issue, like I said, to get the burden of one more child off the family and married off. But mostly in my case, it was.
How long did the marriage last for you and him?
15 years.
So I'm gonna ask this. I'm gonna just ask like the viewers will ask. Why the hell did you stay with a situation for 15 years? Was the family generational secrets that important to you that you stayed in this, or you just didn't really know anything else?
I didn't know anything else. I didn't know any different.
Did he use that as an advantage for you to keep you? Did you want to leave?
Oh, there were times I didn't want to get married, so of course I knew it was a mistake from the get-go. But I had well, this is an important thing about child marriage, is it's very difficult, if not impossible in some instances, for a minor to file for divorce, because a minor can't exact legal action. So when a child gets married, the parents sign the child over to the spouse, oftentimes an adult male, most of the time. Sometimes it is.
So he becomes the ward of you.
Yes.
Until you
so
get
my
age.
husband was my guardian. He had to sign for me to get medical care for my pregnancy when I had my daughter at 15. He had to sign for me to get my driver's license. He withdrew me from high school. Like I said, I never went to high school. He made every legal decision for me.
How did he even marry you at that age? And you're in Indiana. Is that legal here?
It is legal. Underage marriage is legal in Indiana still. It is.
What do you mean still? It's been around for.
Always. It's still, 17-year-olds can get married in Indiana, and there's Indiana included. There's something called, in other states as well, there's something called judicial exception, where the couple can go before a judge if if it's, say, Indiana says, okay, you have to be at least 17 or 16. I don't even remember if it's 16 or 17. But say you have to be, the Indiana law says you have to have parental consent and be 16 years old. Well, a 15-year-old and a 20-year-old can go to a judge and say, we want to get married and this is why. And a judge can give judicial exception.
Is that almost like the Romeo Juliet law that they have in Texas?
Yes.
Okay. But you're talking certain states allow it to happen at 13 years old.
Some states have no lower age limit.
What does that mean?
That means that there's no, if a parent signs, one parent signs, then a child can get married at any age.
You know, that sounds crazy.
It's crazy, but there's like 7 states that California is one of them.
Out of the states, which states is it illegal to?
Let me get my notes here. The 12 states that have ended child marriage are Washington State, Minnesota. Washington just happened in 2024. Minnesota, Michigan, Connecticut, Delaware, Vermont, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, and Virginia just ended it in April. And a bill in Missouri just passed the Senate by a vote of, get this, 31-1. There's one guy out there in Missouri that still thinks this is okay. It's crazy. And that bill's getting ready to go to the House.
What, with the bill passing in certain states, what has that created for underage kids?
Well, the thing about it only being illegal in like 13 states,
Well, it has to start.
they
It
can
has
go
to
to
start
another
somewhere.
state
Yeah.
for one, like Indiana may be 17, but they can go over to Illinois, like I did. I was in Indiana. My mom took me to Kentucky because at that time Kentucky let me get married at 14 to a 20-year-old.
The parents didn't care about the abuse that you share with her. The abuse. Well, let me rephrase it. It was acceptable.
It was not known how to be dealt with because they had so much early childhood trauma that they were not emotionally mature enough, like me having a child at 15 and having a miscarriage at 17, a child at 18, a child at 21, no high school education.
How did you guys provide?
My husband at the time, he had a job. He worked in a factory when we got married. He graduated high school and had a job. And that was one thing that my parents saw was, here's this Christian man that had a good job. He was the right faith, because that was super important. You had to be the right faith. You had to go, our church was the only church that was going to go to heaven. So you had to be there.
Okay.
So they still believe that.
Okay.
So
Everybody else is going to somewhere they don't need to be going.
exactly.
Okay.
So he met the criteria, and it's like, oh wow, she's set. Like I was set in their eyes.
What was the final straw that made you walk away from there?
I got an education.
Education is power.
It is power. I got a GED when my youngest son was a toddler. Youngest son at the time. I have 7 children now. That's when I only had 3. So I got a GED in my mid-20s. And then when my son then went to kindergarten, my youngest of the 3, I went to college. And I cannot tell you what the experience, that wasn't my plan wasn't to get an education and to get out of the marriage, because I was still very much in that religion, and I knew that I was afraid if I got a divorce I'd go to hell, and I didn't want to go to hell.
You was conditioned that day.
Oh honey, for years, even after I got the divorce, the shame and the guilt almost killed me.
You wanted to go back. Literally. Did you want to go back?
I didn't want to go back. I couldn't go back. I was willing to risk hell to get out. I did risk it. I thought I was literally putting my soul in jeopardy to get out of this marriage. Like, literally. And to understand the guilt and shame and pain and trauma from that, I'm still dealing with it. Like, that's a lifelong I mean, I was taught these things from the womb, literally, and that is very powerful to be that conditioned and brainwashed.
Your family pretty much, certain members of your family pretty much have circumcised you.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you rebuild a new family? You got kids. How do you teach them what you went through without impacting them as well?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the tricky part. Because when I got divorced the first time from my child marriage, I was a trauma kid. I mean, and emotionally, I was still young. We didn't have therapy. I didn't know how to get therapy. And,
Right.
It was the 90s, early 90s. I didn't.
Did you have any resources?
None.
Because probably nobody would understand what you.
No, I had no resources. I didn't have that much money. I did have a good job because I got a degree in medical imaging, like I said. Got a job at a hospital. My eyes had been open to the point of where I could not go back. Like I could not unsee the freedom because I was taught that everybody outside of our family and our church was dangerous. The world, like I expected total debauchery when I got out there. I was like, there's going to be orgies on every corner.
How did they take outside races? I mean, outside races like blacks, Latinos, like what was their concept on other nationalities? And
Yes.
we going to hell too?
You're not going to hell, but well, if you came to their church, that'd be okay. You'd be okay if you came to their church. You could probably be cleansed of everything. But because
they sound like a pretty structured organization,
yes.
And once you go into it.
Okay, you're pretty up on the world today and the stuff that you still face and who you face it mainly from.
Yeah.
And that far right leaning contingent is pretty rough on. And I was not. We were very cloistered as a family too, so it was almost a communal situation. Like I said, I lived on the same street, even in Indiana, with my aunts and cousins and my grandparents. And so we didn't have a lot of outside exposure. I did live near inner city. I lived in inner city Indianapolis on the west side near Hallville. So I went
You live near Hallville?
I did.
10th Street, Tibbs?
Well, I lived over by Central State at Washington.
I know exactly where it is, yeah.
But I went, and when I was in 5th grade, though, we got bused.
Okay.
And I got bused to School 52 in Hallville.
Okay.
So that's when I became exposed to different races. Because until then,
You were sheltered like all outdoors.
All outdoors.
Wow.
And because I didn't need anybody outside my family, we were huge.
You have children now. How do they view your whole life? Did you ever share this with them?
Oh yeah.
How do they view your life?
They see me as strong and they're proud of me, and I've had a lot of therapy, and I've tried to be open and honest with them about my trauma, as well as they were raised by a trauma mom. Like they did not have it easy. My kids were trauma kids too, because
were they subjected to?
No, they were not subjected to. By the time I got out of that child marriage, that one thing that I did know, even at 15 when I had my daughter, is I was never allowing anything like that to happen to her. As soon as that baby was born at 15 and they put her in my arms, I understood the gravity of being responsible for her and all my stuff. And I'm not saying my mom didn't love me with all of her heart. She did love me with the capacity that she had.
Based on what she was brought up, she did.
And her immature brain and her trauma and emotional. Like, I don't excuse not healing. And I have spent my life dedicated to healing myself, because I feel like that heals generational trauma. That brings healing to my children, for me to be vulnerable enough to say, look, I screwed up. I didn't know what I was doing. But I know this, I did the best I could with what I had, and I always loved them. And I feel like as long as they understand that, then they can forgive me. Because I have sought their forgiveness. I'm open to talk to them about anything they want to talk about that maybe that I did. I mean, I don't even know. Like, I don't remember. Like, I don't have memories of a lot because the trauma blocks a lot of that. And just my parenting style, because they were raised in that religion to a certain degree too. Not that one, but I went to other conservative churches that have very similar mindsets as far as at least the fear-based, hell, things like that, which I don't believe anymore.
Why did you? What is your end game here? Because this is a situation that can clearly be interpreted as a means to allowing sex trafficking.
Yes.
Prostitution. I mean, the
pornography industry. People don't realize that it's ran by sex trafficking.
This is Pandora's box.
Consuming those things, prostitution, and even online essay material, which is what I call porn, because you look at those women that is abuse being witnessed and accepted by women who come from trauma. You can follow their lives back, and I guarantee you they were not raised in an environment that taught them their worth.
Why do you think, out of all the states that we have here, only a select few have vows to stop this situation? Why haven't other states embraced this and took compassion with it?
People, they don't care. I've talked to legislators. I've lobbied in this arena for several years, and the first state to outlaw was in 2018.
Really?
So, between that's not that long ago. And that was all 50 states until 2018. And so, until people like Genevieve and organizations like Unchained at Last, I encourage people to go to unchainedatlast.org. All the statistics are on there. You can look your state up and see what the laws are in your state. A lot of resources there. But it took survivors coming forward and saying this has to stop, and that is where it began.
Before we wrap up, is there certain states that this is more prevalent than other states? I know none of it should be taking place, but clearly, is there demographics that show these particular states embrace this a lot more, and it's more prevalent here than it is somewhere else?
Well, that's hard to track because, like I said, if it's not legal in one state, it's only illegal in 12. But if it's illegal in your state, somebody can go across state lines, so it's hard to track if, there's not a lot of statistics on that. And Unchained at Last on their website has a lot of these statistics to tell where it's more prevalent. But not really, because it depends on the situation. Is it being used for trafficking? Is it being used for
There's no way to really determine what is
right
for.
At the time. And my end game here was what you asked a few minutes ago, is to raise awareness that this is still happening. And also to raise awareness of not only child marriage, but we have a trauma epidemic. And until we fix that, we're not seeing vast improvements in society, because we need emotional maturity, we need adults running things, and until we have access to really good mental health care, I've had to seek that out, and luckily I have a savings account. I can pay to get good therapy. I just went through a divorce 2 years ago. After I was married to him for 28 years. I got married 2 years after my child marriage, which I got no help from. Carried that trauma into the marriage. And what that did was cause me then, for the next 28 years, I was strong and resilient and independent and all those things that I'd learned, and got myself out of that. But what I didn't have was healing.
Right.
And so going through a shocking divorce after 28 years. I did not see this coming. I did not know this man, and I tolerated shit that I wouldn't have tolerated had I not had the trauma way back when, and thought that I could really, truly, I didn't know my worth. Like, I've learned, in the last 2 years, I've learned more than I have in
I think that's a key component to overcoming trauma, is to first understand what your worth is, and I think
absolutely.
Then you can kind of
because because resiliency and strength and independence, those things come from, because back to my big family, I had trauma, but I also did have support.
You must be reading my mind, because that was my last question. Let's go back to the family tree to see how this just keeps evolving, and you're taking this chance to rectify it.
Yes, and I will say this too about my family. I don't want people to be like, oh, how could they do this? How could they? Okay, take a look at your own family for one thing. But I lived on the same street as my mom and grandma and aunts, and we cooked and we cleaned and we raised babies, and we knew how to do this. This was something we knew how to do. And the men went off and did their stuff, and I had no healthy male. I have not had a safe male in my life for the 60 years I've been alive, except for my sons. And I didn't even know that, and I allowed, like I said, but because I had the support of these women, these strong, traumatized, crazy, loud, independent women who didn't know their worth because they hadn't healed. They did not have that opportunity then that I do now. They do now, and that's up to them now. I'm not judging them. I'm just saying that's their work to do. But support equals strength and resiliency. But healing brings true confidence and self-worth. And that's what I've been working on for the past 2 years. I stayed single for 2 years on purpose because I took a good, long, hard look at myself after this divorce. And I was like, I'm not doing this again. If I ever get in another relationship, I want to be the person that I would want to date. I want to be the person that I would want to be in a relationship with. So I got to work on Kat.
What do you tell, before we wrap up, what do you tell parents to look for, and what are the pros and cons? Like, clearly, like we shared off camera, if my child came to me at 13 years old and said she wanted to go and date somebody, you already know what the answer is.
Right.
Like, what kind of valuable information can you tell a parent whose child might think that, or are there red flags to see that this isn't what you should be doing or what your kids should be thinking about?
I think in our society, providing safety from especially online sources is huge. Most parents are not going to face a kid walking in at 14 and saying, hey, I want to get married. Like, the statistics are dropping because it's becoming, people are more aware of it. Society's different, religion has changed. Things have evolved in this arena. But just other forms of childhood trauma and the access that kids have to online predators, to traffickers, to known 90% of child sexual assault, child molestation happens by a known person to that child, not by a stranger. So I'm just, at my age, it's hard for me to trust anybody fully, because you just don't know what people will do. Just really be very, very diligent. And a lot of abuse is happening younger and younger by younger and younger kids because they do have access to online essay material. So their brains are getting changed early on and desensitized to sex and the way that boys view girls and the way that girls view themselves and view boys. And it's just like, as humans, we just find a different way to traumatize each other.
How can the viewers reach out to you and know more about your crusade for fighting this situation?
On social media, I'm on Instagram, it's Ages and Attitude. And reach out that way if anybody needs to talk or needs resources. I'm happy to provide that. If go to the resiliencyfoundation.org, unchained@last.org, and look at those. There's a ton of resources on there. Educate themselves and just be aware of your surroundings. And if you know, in trafficking situations, a lot of it, people don't even know that's what they're seeing. And we try to educate people in law enforcement, hospitals, medical facilities to see, you know, if a 14-year-old comes in with a man and they're married, like, start looking at that. Like, take notice. But I would say, as far as our own kids, do our own healing. Parents, please go to therapy. We all need it. We've all been raised by human parents.
Yeah.
We're all human, and everybody could use some help.
Kat, thank you so much for coming on and educating us on a topic that clearly I heard about it, but it was kind of like you brought it to the light, to the viewers, and I appreciate you coming on to the show and sharing that. Make sure you guys support. If you know somebody that's in this situation, reach out to those resources that Kat just gave us. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton Show.